that's dear to me, and that's a movement towards a amendment to the Florida Constitution. It's commonly known as Your Dollar, Your Decision. And in fact, for anyone out there that wants to know more about it, you can go to www.yourdollaryourdecision. And we're trying to get petitions signed so we can amend the Constitution to actually limit the amount that governments can raise taxes based on population and CPI. So if those numbers were true, then they'd be fine.
Yeah, and again, without the taxpayers' approval, which is the way it should be in terms of just the ongoing. I mean, all we have to do is pick up the newspaper or talk to a friend who just lost his job. And one of the things that you'll see also in looking at the budgets and the number of employees, there's been very, very little reduction in actual numbers in the last 14, 15 years in the non-public safety employees. Certainly we need to spend more money on public safety. We spend, according to the folks at the City Hall, we spend about 51% on public safety, which is an undefined term, but would include things such as your fire and rescue and your police, okay? More funding needs to be put in that. One of the reasons I say that is you look at this last pie chart at the bottom left, you see a large yellowish looking part of the graph, and that represents other disbursements. Now that's 188 million, almost 189 million dollars, and yes, this is supposed to be the budgeted brief, but still, what did they spend at 189 million on? It's other disbursements. They already covered culture, recreation, human services, transportation, physical environment, public safety, general government, economic environment, and then all of us, well, we can't figure out where to put these other ones, so here's another 189 million. Now, if we just took half of that money and put it into public safety to help clear up the problems we're having in Jacksonville right now with the pensions, and get those things back to...
From what I understand, the pension fund isn't funded correctly. It's underfunded. Is that correct?
That's correct. There's what they call a lot of unfunded liabilities. I'm not sure all the assumptions that are being made, but some of those assumptions may be that if everybody were to retire tomorrow, but notwithstanding that, it's underfunded, and police officers and firemen aren't paid enough. I mean, let's put it frankly as can be. Who wants to go out there and risk their life to rescue someone or prevent a crime or again rescue somebody, at $40,000, $50,000 a year? We need to get those numbers up a little bit. How can we do it without raising taxes? Well, we go through and we take 10-20% of the staff of the city, and we just say, okay, I'm sorry, you're being furloughed.
It sounds like even if we didn't raise their, the salaries of the policemen, that we might have, our budget would have to go up just to meet the needs to meet the pension. So really these budgets are kind of skewed, because ultimately I do know that taxpayers are liable. These pension funds, there's legality. They have to get paid. If you are a police officer, your pension is secure. You're not going to lose out like someone that works for one of these companies that was mismanaged.
Well,
so
I don't know
it'll fall
about
on us. So they should pay it now and give a true budget,
I think you're right, Ed, but the ultimate out of the municipality, just like a company, is to go bankrupt. And they can do that. And if that were to happen, then who knows what would happen to the pension plans. The idea is to get people in office, such as Libertarians, that say, look, we don't want to spend all this money on all this stuff. It's nice. It's nice to say we're going to go fix up Metropolitan Park whether anybody shows up or not, except for concerts and stuff. It's nice to say we're going to spend all these money on children's services instead of doing, we're going to create a bureaucracy, form a committee in order to sell tickets for people to come so that 20% of the money we get trickles down to the poor. Well, Jesus said, you give to the poor. You don't go through a government bureaucracy to do it. So a lot of these things can be eliminated and taken up by charitable contributions. And so when we look at the whole budget picture, I'm not saying that there's not a lot of good things that the government does do and some necessary things. It's just that they're trying to be all things to all people. Now, as part and parcel that I mentioned the First Amendment, of course we have a Second Amendment. And I think just about every libertarian supports the right of the people to keep and bear arms. Should there be any regulation on firearms? Well, differing viewpoints can be good about that. But, the court the Supreme Court recently ruled in a case involving the District of Columbia where you couldn't have a gun at all, and then you had to register it. Well, my parents, or grandparents I should say, were from Czechoslovakia, and my mother's uncle was the president of Czechoslovakia when Hitler came in. And what happened then, very simply, was they went to the local police station, they got the list of all the people who had guns, and they went around with the stormtroopers and just took the guns away.
Kind of like Red Dawn.
Well, you know, it's happened. Historically, it's happened. And hopefully that would never happen in our country because of our, you know, great service academies and stuff, and people raised in the concept that, you know, civilians control this country, and we won't do that. But
did you know it actually has happened in this country?
Where was that?
After Hurricane Katrina, wow, we're already halfway over, so hopefully we can get to everything today. But and I saw this on YouTube. I can email it to you later. After Hurricane Katrina, the police officers were worried about public unrest, so they had SWAT teams, and the ABC News showed it. They went to the houses of people and they said, "Are you a gun owner?" And the people would say yes, because this is America and it's our Second Amendment right. And if you said yes, they handcuffed you, and then they went and got the gun. And there's a video of a lady, they injured this lady. She's about 70 years old. They slammed her to the floor. It was really terrible. And, you know, the police officers thought they were doing the right thing, but these were, I mean, if you watch the video, this wasn't about going and getting guns from criminals or stopping criminals. It was going to people that are perfect citizens and saying, "Do you have a gun?" and taking the gun away.
And that sort of proves my point. Another thing I think, as all of libertarians think, you know, we've had a war on poverty, which we sort of gave up on, a war on drugs, which has been lost for the last 30 years, at the cost of a lot of people being incarcerated for possession of a plant in their backyard or what have you. I think most libertarians agree that it's none of the government's business, certainly it's to marijuana, to get involved. And if you want to regulate it and make it like tobacco and say we're going to put a humongous tax like they're doing on cigarettes additionally now, it's a revenue raiser. So what business is it of the government what somebody does? You know, you read a lot about drunk drivers out there killing people, but you don't read too much about stoned drivers. And I mean that stoned on marijuana. And I've never
They probably don't get off the couch to go do it.
I've never smoked marijuana, and I never will again, right? But having said that, it's another thing where we see a government intrusion into our daily lives.
I'll give you my perspective on that and the other issues. For me, it's not about whether the thing is right or wrong, you know, whether we need this or not that, whether we need fairness, whether we need this or that. It's about, is building a big government program really the most effective way to get that done? I don't think people should do drugs. They should eat their vegetables and brush their teeth. But I mean, making a law that makes you brush your teeth, I don't think that's the best way of doing it.
Yeah,
no.
Or you go to prison. Well, I think there's a lot to be said for what you're talking about. And the whole concept, I think, and what I like about the Libertarian Party, and why hope more people join us. Again, every third Thursday down there across from Tinseltown in the Golden Corral, 6:30, is the concept that, you know, we exchange ideas just like we're talking right here. And there can be disagreements. You know, the fundamental principle, though, is, as Phil just expressed it very well, less government, okay? Well, why does the government need to be doing this? It invariably is going to cost us money. And, you know, now the Fed is certainly, and the Treasury Department are certainly showing that they can print money faster than you and I could count it. So we do have a lot of economic problems in this country, and it's a time for people to get involved. Particularly, you know, a lot of young people came out in the last election and voted for President Obama. And whatever you think of him, or whether you voted for him or not, I mean, you know, he is our president. And having said that, though, to the extent that you, as a young person, want to get out here and get involved, that's the kind of people. You don't look for old dogs like me, all, you know, to be carrying the burden. But we need more young people and people who are sort of dissatisfied with both parties, as I became.
I think that President Obama's election will be as good for the Libertarian Party as President Bush's election, maybe even more so, because I think a lot of people felt, wow, this guy is going to change and it's going to be a positive change. A lot of the policies, although he's articulate and he comes off better on TV, many of the policies are very similar to the policies from the previous administration. So I really don't feel that he has a change oriented policies, and that people that do want change should look at the Libertarian Party.
Absolutely, and it's and we can't put enough blame on our congressional representatives, because they control the purse strings. And yes, we have a two-party system.